Hey guys, what's going on? James here, and in today's video we're going to be talking about should the Tampa Bay Buccaneers trade for Jets inside linebacker Darron Lee. So without further ado, let's talk about it. This is a move that makes a lot of sense for the Jets, that they are shopping their former first-round draft pick linebacker Darron Lee out of Ohio State because simply there's too many high-paid good linebackers on the Jets right now to fit Greg Williams' scheme. They have Avery Williamson that they added last offseason, and they also have CJ Mosley, who they just gave a insane contract to this offseason. And Darron Lee is in the final year of his rookie contract, so it makes sense. They're not going to be able to pay everybody, so Darron Lee looks like he very could well potentially be on the way out, and it's been reported that they're asking for a third-round draft pick. Now, I've seen it been reported that other teams are interested in trading for Darron Lee. Teams like the Cleveland Browns, who are literally interested in everybody at this point, teams like the New Orleans Saints, and teams like the Dallas Cowboys. But another team that is interested for Darron Lee's services is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So should the Buccaneers pull the trigger, and should they trade a third-round draft pick for Darron Lee? Well, let's discuss it a little bit. First thing I want to talk about is Darron Lee, the player. 24 years old, former first-round draft pick out of Ohio State. I like him a lot, and I will say he has had a little bit of an injury issue the past couple of seasons. I believe he missed 4 games this most recent season, and even before that, I believe he missed 1 game in the season even before that. But when Darron Lee plays, he's one of the better 3-4 linebackers in the league. In fact, one of the top half linebackers in the league, period. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, James, come on, there's a reason that the Jets want to trade him. But hear me out on this, okay? I know a lot of people like to look into Pro Football Focus numbers. So I went ahead and I took a look at his Pro Football Focus ranking and rating and whatnot. And he was graded last season as an above average linebacker, and he ranked the number 24th linebacker in the entire NFL, be it 3-4 linebackers, 4-3 linebackers, just in terms of inside linebackers and whatnot. He was ranked number 24th overall linebacker, whatever have you. He was number 24, which in my opinion is really, really good given his age of 24 years old. Yes. Now, I have always been impressed by Darron Lee's run-stopping ability. I think he's one of the better young run-stopping linebackers in the game, and I think especially this year, he is starting to come into his own as a pass coverage linebacker as well. He did have some problems with it early on in his career, but especially this past season, he was doing a lot better at covering tight ends, running backs, whatever have you. He was doing a lot better of a job in that regard. So I think he's just continuing to improve. He's continuing to get more balanced, and he obviously is still insanely young, still on his rookie contract, so there are a lot of positives in regards to his overall stats, his overall age, and his overall ability. Talk about his connections with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for a second. Now, I don't know if you guys know this, but I haven't talked about it a lot on this channel. Todd Bowles, you might have heard of him. He's the new defensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Another fun fact I'm sure a lot of you probably know is that Todd Bowles used to be the head coach of an NFL team before he became the defensive coordinator to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Well, what team was he the head coach of? Why, he was the head coach of the New York Jets. And in fact, one of his first ever draft picks was linebacker Darron Lee out of Ohio State. This guy was one of Todd Bowles' first ever high-end draft picks, one of his first ever draft picks, period. You know, this guy has a lot of faith in Darron Lee. Todd Bowles has a lot of faith in Darron Lee. So I could totally see a situation where Todd Bowles goes to Bruce Arians and says, hey, I know the Jets have made Darron Lee available. I really want a guy like Darron Lee, and it's been reported that Todd Bowles has a lot of say of the players that are added to this Buccaneers defense. So I could see him going to Bruce Arians and saying, hey, I really want my guy. I drafted him in the first round. He's a really good linebacker. You know this. I know this. The Jets don't want a whole lot. They want a third-round draft pick. Let's go out there and let's try and get this guy because I think he's going to be really good for many years to come. And obviously that goes all the way up to Jason Light, and then all the trade talks begin. I could see a situation like that happening 100%. And if Todd Bowles is really has as much say as a lot of us think he does in terms of adding players to this Buccaneers defense, there are going to be some trade talks there. Now the question becomes, are the Buccaneers comfortable giving up a third-round draft pick to get a guy like Darron Lee? And obviously the immediate comparison I'm going to make is they did it last year. They gave up a third-round draft pick to the New York Giants to acquire Jason Pierre-Paul. Now I don't think that Jason Pierre-Paul and Darron Lee are on the similar levels in terms of just overall raw ability. I mean, obviously it's two different positions, middle linebacker being for Darron Lee, edge rusher being for Jason Pierre-Paul, so I understand that there are some differences there, but I still think the point stands that Jason Licht is willing up to give a third-round draft pick if he values a defensive player enough, and he feels that the coaching staff really wants this guy bad enough. So I could totally see, you know, Jason Licht heavily considering, well, maybe we should give up a third-round draft pick to get a guy like Darron Lee. It's not like a situation where he's 27, 28 years old. He's 24 years old. That's as old as Quan Alexander. This guy would be the perfect replacement for a guy like Quan Alexander. I think he's just as good, in my opinion, if not a little bit better in certain situations. And I feel adding him to this Todd Bowles defense, he could really continue to shine and continue just to develop into that really balanced, amazing middle linebacker that Todd Bowles was making him early on in his career. I think he would pair up very well with a guy like Levante David, pair up really well with some outside edge rushing linebackers like Shaq Barrett, like whoever else they add in the draft, maybe like a guy like Jason Pierre-Paul should they decide to move him to outside edge rushing linebacker, Carl Nassib, Noah Spence. Darron Lee would fit awesome in this defense. I do personally have a little bit of a problem giving up a third-round draft pick. I think that I would want at least, you know, a 6th-round draft pick in return. That would make me feel a little bit better, and I know that doesn't seem like much, but you never know. I mean, Jason Licht has been able to get value out of undrafted free agents, so I think he could get some value out of some, you know, bottom-tier draft picks as well, given the right type of development and cultivation and whatnot. I would feel a little bit better giving up a third-round draft pick if I could get a 6th-round draft pick and Darron Lee in return. Ideally for me, if I couldn't get anything back in return for a guy like Darron Lee, at most what I would be willing to give up is probably a 4th-round draft pick. You could still convince me to give up a 3rd-round draft pick because I trust Darron Lee that much. Okay, I really like the guy. I would probably be willing to give up a 3rd-round draft pick, but I think I would be a little bit more comfortable giving up a 4th-round draft pick. Anybody would, considering, you know, 4th-round draft pick is worth less than a 3rd-round draft pick, but, you know, I think you could still convince me to give up a 3rd-rounder. You know, it just depends. I think it's a perfect storm, you know. I think it's a perfect storm of age, ability, contractual situations, defensive situations. Darron Lee's former head coach is literally the defensive coordinator. You can't get a more perfect scenario right there. So, you know, I think I would ultimately be comfortable giving up a 3rd-rounder. You know, I think you could convince me on that. But guys, let me know what you think about all of this down in the comment section below. What do you think about the Buccaneers trading for a guy like Darron Lee? I've given you the stats, I've given you his Pro Football Focus ranking, and I've pretty much given you this perfect storm of a situation of age, ability, former head coach on the Buccaneers team, and really giving up a 3rd-round draft pick for a former 1st-round draft pick isn't that much, especially considering that this former 1st-round draft pick is still playing good. It's not like he's a bust. He's actually still pretty decent. So I think it's a pretty perfect storm of situation where the Buccaneers could get some really awesome value here. But again, let me know what you think about all of this down in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you all enjoyed. And as always, I'll see you in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.